Hey guys, how are you? I have the video for this week, and this week, well, we're doing something a little bit different. Now, I don't normally do things like this. I don't normally do plays, but Her Infernal Majesty can't do this. It would totally not work with her. Otterline is up to her eyeballs in a Beckett, and I don't think she actually would really understand it. She's trying out Beckett's novels. I'm doing this. I don't have to do Beckett's novels. I think that's a fair swap. So I am doing a play because Her Infernal Majesty can't do it. Otterline is busy with something else and nobody else is really available to do it. So there you go. Anyway, before we start, remember there is our shop if you want to support us, where we have books and writing services. There is also our Redbubble shop where there are over 100 designs. And there, if you don't want to support us with money, like, subscribe, comment, and share. It's totally cool if you don't want to spend any bread, man. We totally understand that. So, what am I doing? Okay, I am ruining your favorite musical for you. Ha! How's that? How's that? I love messing with things like that. I love stirring it. Her Infernal Majesty just could not do this justice. Besides, she explicitly said, I am not doing Pygmalion. Guess what I'm doing? And yes, I am wearing my Paul Keating t-shirt, the one that I go vote for a reason. It's not arbitrary. So, George Bernard Shaw's 1913 play, Pygmalion. You all know it. It was made into a musical with Audrey Hepburn and Rex Harrison and called My Fair Lady. And every single person missed the point. Which I can't be that hard on you because even when the play was written, people in the audience missed the point. So, Pygmalion is using the ancient Roman, Greek, it's in Ovid, so I'm going to call it Roman, myth of Pygmalion and Galatea. Pygmalion is a sculptor. He's known for constructing beautiful things, and one day he makes a sculpture of a beautiful woman, and he calls it Galatea, and he is so captivated by this sculpture of a beautiful woman that he falls in love with it, and he buys it clothes, and he absolutely adores it, but he wants it to be a real woman, and he prays to the goddess Aphrodite to please make the statue a real woman, kind of like Pinocchio. It's kind of like Pinocchio. Please make them a real boy. Well, this says, please make her a real woman. And the goddess Aphrodite, the goddess of love, the goddess Venus, one day while he is kissing the statue kisses him back. She grants his wish. She turns Galatea, the statue, into a real girl, a real woman, a real live woman. And so that is the where Pygmalion comes from. This modern day Pygmalion opens outside of Covent Garden. Covent Garden in London, the theatre area, the opera, outside the opera of Covent Garden. Covent Garden has for a couple of centuries been the pleasure area of London. So, you know, Handel's theatre, Handel's operas are at Covent Garden. You know, it was outside. It was also a place, especially in the 18th century, where you'd have a lot of performers and street people around. And in 1913, the remnants of this fun at Covent Garden is a poor flower seller called Eliza, and she is outside Covent Garden trying to sell her little bunches of violets to the toffs coming out of the opera. So instantly we have this very upper class, very upper class and highly educated form of entertainment, the opera, and then we have the absolutely bedraggled working poor who there isn't much further she can fall, but there is one step further that she can fall, and she is very adamant that she is not. But this poor girl working, and there are other working people around. They're outside, they're excluded. And she has a very strong Cockney accent. And she tries to sell her flowers. She is selling her flowers, and one of the people around her says, you better watch out because there is a man taking down every word you're saying. And her instant reaction, the instant reaction of any poor person is, it's the cops. Oh, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm not guilty of something. She freaks out. Turns out the man who is taking down, he comes out and what are you saying? What are you writing? People are really curious about this because some of the people are trying to defend this poor woman who is absolutely having a meltdown about the fact that she didn't do anything wrong. She's allowed to sell flowers. Is this because she, someone she offered someone something and hadn't given him his change, she is terrified. And it turns out he is not interested in her, cash handling skills. He is interested in her accent. And he tells several different people where their accents come from. The person whom she got the change from is a Colonel Pickering. Henry Higgins is interested in language and teaching how to speak, and he's interested in accents, and he's collecting these things, and he is wanting to meet a man named Colonel Pickering, who is the man Eliza has spoken to, who gave her more change than he should have. Turns out Higgins was going to go to India to see Pickering. Pickering was coming to London to see him. They're very interested. Pickering is also interested in language, but he is interested in language from India. And so these two men meet up. And in the course of Higgins talking, he says as an offhand remark that he could take Eliza and turn her into a lady. He could change the way she speaks so that she can speak without her regional dialectic accent that is part of what is stopping her from moving out of the position she is in society. And so Higgins and Pickering have gone their own way. Higgins throws money at Eliza. He gives her money, drops it in the change that's in his pocket, and she takes a taxi. She takes a taxi home. Now, also at the theatre, though this is more of a little sort of as an aside, is Freddie and his family, who are a group of people who have come out of the theatre. They're looking for a taxi. Freddie goes off to see the taxi, and that's how people start to interact, is Eliza calls out Freddie. And his mother says, how do you know his name's Freddie? Well, it could be Freddie or Charlie or Bill. I just call out a name. So Freddie has not really seen Eliza in the gutter. And this is actually important. So Freddie, unlike his mother and sister, have not seen Eliza in the gutter. Now, in the next act, Eliza has thought all night clearly about this offhand statement that I could make you into a duchess. And she comes to Higgins's apartments, his house in posh part of London, and she says, I want lessons. I came in a cab. I can pay you. I'm not asking for charity. I can pay you. I want lessons. I want to be able to speak well enough to get a job as a girl in a shop, in a flower shop. I want to work in a flower shop. I want to work in a flower shop. I need to have the right sort of way of speaking so that I can talk nicely and I can get that job, because that job is a major step up for her. So this intrigues Higgins. And Higgins and Pickering eventually, after some haggling with Eliza about how much she's going to pay, but Higgins and Pickering eventually decide to turn her into a project. They're going to turn her into a duchess in 6 months. She's going to live with them. Pickering will finance the experiment, and Higgins will be responsible for the actual teaching of her. Now, Eliza is very uncertain as to whether or not to go with this, but she is convinced about, well, if I can get what I'm wanting, then yeah, okay, I can go along with this. And she's taken upstairs to have a bath, and her wait to get some new clothes and all sorts of this sort of thing. In comes, while she's gone upstairs, she actually sends down the cab back to get her things from her lodgings once she's decided this. In comes, and this is a character that looks really, really inconsequential and just looks like comic relief until you read it the way I'm going to read this. In comes Eliza's father, who is a dustman. He is a drunk, and he says to Pickering, he says to Higgins, well, if you're keeping my daughter, who didn't want no clothes when she came and had her stuff picked up, then I want my bit from her. I want some money, £5. Effectively, I will sell you my daughter for £5. And Higgins agrees. Higgins is so taken by Doolittle and his morality of the underclass that he can't be anything but amused by this, and he'll go as high as £10 or £15. And no, can't possibly. You can have too much fun on that. You might be minded to put some away. So Doolittle sells his daughter for £5. And his assumption is that this is some sort of ménage à trois between his daughter and the two men. He doesn't really care, so long as he gets his cut. Eliza, through the entirety of this act, the second act of the play, when she is talking, the thing that she keeps asserting over and over and over again is, I am a good girl. And it takes a bit of persuasion to take part in the experiment because she is a good girl. What she means by good girl isn't morally upstanding. It means she's not a prostitute. And she does not want to engage in prostitution. She doesn't want to be someone's kept mistress. She is a good girl. She earns her own money. It is a pittance, but she earns it. Whereas to be not a good girl is to be a prostitute. So she has a place to fall to. She is very, very aware. As much as she wants to rise, she is very aware that there is a lower place that she can fall to and that she does not want to go there. So this is why she keeps asserting, I am a good girl. So she is asserting her right to not be taken advantage of in that way. She sells flowers, not her body. So it's a very important distinction that she keeps making. And I think it's a very important distinction that George Bernard Shaw is making, because he did have a whole play about prostitution. So anyway, the three of them get to work with Eliza learning how to speak proper received English as opposed to her regional accent. And 4 months later, Henry Higgins takes Eliza to his mother's at home, which is where society ladies would stay at home and other people would come to them. People would have different days and it was a whole social thing. And he wants to present Eliza to in a social setting to see how this whole project is going. And so Eliza goes, and two of the people at Mrs. Higgins' at home, or actually three, are Freddie, his mother, and his sister. Eliza turns up. She speaks with her received English, but her language, her content of her language betrays where she's from. It is one thing to dress her up in fine clothes and give her received English, which is somewhat stilted and very, she's clearly thinking about it. So it doesn't sound natural. And although Freddie is absolutely captivated, Higgins passes off her boldness and her strange language as a new fashion. But ultimately, it is in some ways a failure. Higgins doesn't tell her it's a failure, but it's his mother who tells him, not her, because his mother is not a bitch. His mother tells him, you can't, she might sound right, but she doesn't sound right. You've dressed her up, but she's still a toy. She's still not ready. You will embarrass her. If she goes into society and talks like that, everyone will laugh at her. And that's cruel. And so another 2 months of work, and we don't actually see her triumph. We don't see her triumph. We don't see her moment where she spends all day and she convinces everybody that she is a lady. We see the aftermath. We see Eliza having succeeded. She has succeeded. Higgins wins his bet. Colonel Pickering pays it out. They congratulate each other for what they have done. And no one thinks to say to Eliza, you did a great job. You worked really hard. Are you proud of yourself? I'm proud of you. Not one person says that. Now, Henry Higgins, you can kind of accept because he's a bit of a bum. He's rude and he's caustic and he's problematic in a great many ways, but he's rude. But Colonel Pickering, who has always been polite, who has always called her Miss Doolittle, who has always treated her in a way that reinforced her dignity as a human being, doesn't either. And this really, both of these men ignoring her and ignoring her work, the work that she put in, really hurts her. She is also quite upset because now that she's won, thank God it's done, all this work. What happens to me? What happens to me? I can't go back to where I was. Now I'm a freak. I am a perfectly talking, mannered freak. You have made me suitable for nothing but marriage, which means I am worse off than I was when I sold flowers because all I can do is sell myself. I can sell myself in marriage, but it's still selling yourself. And Henry just doesn't understand this. She is very, very upset and she runs away. She goes to Mrs. Higgins. Mrs. Higgins has taken her in. Henry and Mr. Pickering are absolutely beside themselves the next morning. She's a missing person. They're really, really upset. And Mrs. Higgins basically gives it to Henry of being an idiot. But before she lets Eliza come down, Mr. Doolittle, her father, comes in. He is not looking for his daughter, he's looking for Henry. Because Mr. Doolittle is now dressed in very fine clothes. Henry went and made a reference to him in a letter of a very curious moral philosopher to an American friend of his who has left Mr. Doolittle £3,000 a year in his will and 6 speaking engagements a year. Mr. Doolittle has no problem with the speaking engagements. He can do that standing on his head. He is very upset about being given all of this money and having been foisted into the middle classes. And now being put into a position he does not understand, he is bewildered by, and that everybody is now at him. And he can't give it up because what's the option? The poorhouse. The option is the poorhouse. It's either become this thing that I do not understand or go to the poorhouse. And he has not got the stomach to go to the poorhouse. He is going to have to endure being seen as wealthy, but he is a freak. He is a freak in a frock coat, and he knows it. He knows he's a freak. He's people are not respectful of him because he is a person to respect. They're respectful of the £3,000. They treat him the same way he treated other people with money, and he does not like how he is being treated. But he is forced into being this person because the alternative is penury. Eliza, he's sent out because they don't want to shock Eliza. Eliza comes down and she's able to explain herself of why she was so upset. She was upset because she now doesn't know what she is anymore. She felt disregarded by the men. She is upset and she's confused about this. She knows she can't go back to where she was. She wouldn't be satisfied with a man of her actual origins because of the gulf that has now opened up between her and them. And she doesn't know where she fits. She feels like a freak, just like her father feels like a freak. And then eventually her father does come out and she's very, very shocked by that, by him, but she agrees to go to his wedding with Mrs. Pickering, with Colonel Pickering, with Mrs. Higgins. So they plan to go to the wedding. But before she goes to the wedding, the final part, she and Henry talk. This is where, for me, the key to the entire play comes in. She has, for the entirety of the play, spent time, or the second half of the play, has talked about what will become of me. She's looking outside for someone to validate her, to say, what will become of me? Please dictate what becomes of me. And she has fetched and carried and done all sorts of things, that acted as a secretary. She's acted in a servile manner to Henry and Colonel Pickering because she has seen it as a gulf between them of status, regardless of how many fine clothes that she wears, how finely she speaks, no matter what manners she has picked up, she has seen herself as less than, and therefore it has been fine for Higgins to order her about. Even though Pickering has been nothing but polite to her and has always treated her like a lady, Higgins has continued to treat her as if she is less than. And so long as she keeps thinking she is less than, he keeps treating her as if she is less than. And at the very end of the play, there is a really key moment where she realizes. It's the very, very end of the play. So I printed it up. That's how close to the end of the play. It's the last few minutes of the play. She realizes that although Pickering had set her up in a shop, she realizes all of a sudden she's not dependent on them. So it's not that she couldn't have depended on them. Pickering had set her up in a shop. It'd be fine. But she would always feel she owed them. At the very end of the play, this is why Higgins can't understand her outburst. This is why Higgins is like, I don't understand. Pickering will set you up at a shop. He's got bags of money. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. She's been treated in a servile manner. She has to depend on other people to support her. She had previously always supported herself, regardless of how poorly that support that she was able to afford herself had been. Now she finds herself servile and dependent. She had been servile and independent. Now she is servile and dependent until she realizes, you gave me something that you can't take back. You gave me something you can't take back. And this shocks Henry. Because this is the thing that I don't even know that he quite realized he gave it to her. But she says, everything you taught me, I can teach others. Every single thing. I can set myself up and teach other people of my class how to speak like a duchess. You can't take that from me. You can't take that away from me. It's in me now. You didn't even realize you were giving it to me. And all of a sudden, she goes from being servile to being an equal. Not because she's suddenly, going to set herself up as a rival to Henry. She's not. But because she's understanding, you've given me something that I can actually use. It's the value of education. Because the lines here are, she threatens to go and work as an assistant with his rival, and he is really actually quite violent. He puts his hands around her neck, and she's entirely passive. She's like, I knew this would happen eventually. He lets her go. Now I know how to deal with you. What a fool I was to not think of it before. You can't take away the knowledge you gave me. You said I had a finer ear than you, and I can be civil and kind to people, which is more than you can. Ha! That's done it, Henry Higgins, it has. Now I don't care for your bullying and your big talk. I'll advertise it in the papers that your duchess is only a flower girl, and that you taught, and that she'll teach anybody to be a duchess. Just the same in 6 months for 1,000 guineas. Oh, when I think of myself crawling under your feet and being trampled on and called names, when all I had to do was lift up my finger to be as good as you, I could kick myself. She self-actualizes. She becomes not servile. She has something in herself that says, I'm your equal now. I have thought of myself as not equal, but I have something that gives me my independence. I have an ability to do this. And what's more, I'm nicer than you, so I can actually probably get more customers than you could. And people would pay £1,000 for that. They will pay a fortune. That would be £2,000 a year, unless you took on more than that in clients. Higgins' reply to this is, you damned impudent slut, you. But it's better than snivelling, better than fetching slippers and finding spectacles, isn't it? By George, Eliza, I said I'd make a woman of you, and I have. I like you like this. Henry recognises her as an independent person at this point. She's not snivelling, she's not fetching, she's not carrying. She is saying, I am as good as you. I can do what you do. What you gave me, you can't take away from me now. And it wasn't stolen, it was given to me. You can't complain if I use what I was given to maintain myself. Right at the end, Higgins tests out this new resolve. In the last few lines, he says he's not going to the church. He is now admiring of her. He has called her a tower of strength and a consort battleship. And right before she leaves to go to her father's wedding, he says to her, oh, by the way, Eliza, order a ham and a Stilton cheese, will you? And buy me a pair of reindeer gloves, number 8, and a tie to match that new suit of mine at Eel and Binham's. You can choose the colour. And Eliza says to him, and this is her last words, buy them yourself. And she leaves. That last line, he's testing her. She doesn't marry Higgins. To think, and audiences had this problem with this play from the beginning. They had this problem with the play from the beginning is, the leading lady and the protagonist should get together. Why? Why should they get together? Hopefully you watched Her Infernal Majesty talk about The Deep Blue Sea by Terence Rattigan. Should Hess have got together with Freddie or her ex-husband? No, that would be stupid. Eliza and Higgins is not a romantic relationship, and George Bernard Shaw never intended them to be a romantic relationship. And the fact that My Fair Lady ends with Eliza more or less being servile and fetching-ish slippers is just like, you miss the entire point of the play. You miss the entire point of the play. And a lot of people have been complaining that, it's a woman going and this isn't a very feminist ending from what looks like a very feminist play. I would argue this is not a feminist play. Not an exclusively feminist play, and not an explicitly feminist play. George Bernard Shaw was, and I didn't know this, and I wasn't going to do this play until I found this out, and I realised I could wreck this for everybody. And this will explain the Paul Keating t-shirt. George Bernard Shaw was a founding member of the Fabian Society. He wrote the manifesto. He was a Fabian. A Fabian is the oldest form of English socialism. They are distinct from Marxists and more revolutionary, and communists, more revolutionary aimed left-leaning groups which aim at violent revolution. He was a Fabian. Fabianism is the idea of social revolution through education, agitation, and organisation. It aims Fabians have been massively successful in a lot of Western democracies like Australia or England. They have actually been massively successful. How? In things that we now take for granted. Things that we don't even realize are actually based on Fabian concepts. Free public school system. National health care, whether it's the national health or it's Medicare. We have a Prime Minister who held up his Medicare card on election day when he won. That is how important that is to people in my country. That is how fundamental they see that. Socialized medicine. Opportunity to gain education through universities. And although I come from a generation later than Whitlam and the free universities, I still had access to that. I have to pay. I've got to pay it back eventually. But I got access to something that I would never have had access to. Things like equal pay, childcare, maternity leave, paternity leave, all these things that are seen as really basic social safety net things are in essence Fabian. That is where they come from. You don't have that sort of socialist society, that socialized support network without the Fabians. So how do we look at My Fair Lady as a Fabian text? How do we do that? We have Eliza, who is poor, highly disadvantaged, who is living on the margins, and she encounters wealthy, establishment Henry Higgins. She can see she can identify, which is very important, as a member of a literal underclass. She is selling flowers so that she doesn't have to beg, so that she doesn't have to sell herself. So I guess after selling yourself, the next rung down is beggar. She is not very far off the very, very bottom of society, but she has ambition and she knows that she can work hard and get where she wants to go. What she wants at the beginning of the play is, I want to have a job in a shop. I want to have a job in a shop because a job in a shop pays more money and I can be more comfortable, and I would like that. I would like to, she actually, at the beginning of the play, she talks about when she first starts in, the idea that you have other clothes that you can put on to go to bed, that you don't wear your day clothes in bed because it is not freezing cold. You're not having to wear your clothes all day and all night until they fall apart because it's cold and you can't afford heat. That is what a shop job means to her. It means things like being able to afford heat and food and clothes, basic necessities of life. And she recognizes, I have a problem that's stopping me getting there, and I want to do it, and I want to pay. I'm not asking for charity. She's not asking for charity. She is saying, I will pay. And I know a lady who learns French, and English is my own language, so I will pay you this much. And Henry thinks, this is proportionate to her income. This is the highest fee I've ever been offered. And this is partly what sparks his interest in her, is this ambitious girl from a position where social norms would say you don't have ambition. And so she learns. She learns not just the phonetic parts of what she needs to learn. She learns the cultural capital to go along with it. the thing that her father does not have. Her father, and I think it's really important that Shaw put these two people in there. They are both in the similar position. They're both in the gutter. One is just handed money, charity. The other is handed an education. She is not ever once handed money. She's given some clothes. I guess technically she could go and pawn the clothes and make some money that way. But she's given an education. Doolittle is handed money. Doolittle is given charity. She has been given an opportunity. Doolittle has no idea what to do with charity. He even at the beginning recognizes that he can't have that much. If he's given too much, it overwhelms him. He cannot understand what to do with that level of money. And that having a certain amount of money actually takes him out of a place where he is comfortable being. He is comfortable with £5, but not with 10. Eliza knows she's not comfortable where she is and she wants to change that. And so she asks, not for money, she offers money. She offers a resource that she is sorely lacking in. Something that could perhaps buy her a hot meal in a pub or something else. She doesn't take that extra money and think, oh, I'll just enjoy that right now. She says, I want an education from this. I want to get into a position where I don't have to be here any longer. I actually want a future. And so that's what this is about. Fabians believed in things like education. They believed in stealthily getting their message in, and getting their message in places where it will be accepted. It's not about violent upheaval. It's not about destroying the status quo, but it is about lifting all things. It's like a rising tide lifts all boats. A rising tide being no universal health care, which was a thing. People did go in my country into medical bankruptcy because there was no universal health care. People had to have paid health insurance or going to the doctor would be incredibly expensive, and people avoided going to the doctor. People avoided healthcare. Lifespans were shorter. People's lives and health were worse. Universal healthcare, people have access. No, the system's not perfect, but you gave that to them. People's access to healthcare improved. People's access to just ease of living, because they're not living chronically ill from things that are preventable by modern medicine, and they're not one hospital visit or one doctor's visit or one illness away from having their finances completely destroyed. And that raised all boats across the board in this country, to the point that in the 1990s, the Conservatives had to make health insurance look attractive by penalising people earning a certain amount of money to keep the health insurers afloat. Because people, you raised all the boats, and people are not going to let go of that. That is why elections are won and lost on threats to something like Medicare in my country. That is why a Prime Minister is holding his Medicare card in his victory speech. Once you give people these things, they get very attached to them. And because you are raising everyone together, it is not charity, it is raising everyone together. It's very hard to then unbake that. Education is another really good example. I work in public education. I could go out tomorrow. I could go out tomorrow and get myself a job in a private school. I could. I'd earn twice what I'm earning now because I'd work full time. I don't work full time, but I could go out tomorrow, get myself a permanent job in a private school, but I won't. I won't do that. I am a product of public education. I have 3 degrees because of the access that was given to people of more disadvantaged backgrounds during the 1970s that was not taken away. Yes, there's HECS. I have to pay for it. I haven't paid for it. Doesn't matter. They're not begging for the money. They don't need the money. They're getting far more value out of me going and teaching in a public school than they ever get just to get that money back. I can tell you that. It'll get paid back eventually, I guess. But that's not the point. I am a first in family to university. I'm the first person in my family, in my direct line, who went to university. I have an aunt who went, but that wasn't really much help because she lived in Melbourne while I was studying and doing these things. It was sort of like, oh, you have an auntie who did that. Oh, okay. It wasn't that I didn't come from a culture of university. I don't even know how I became aware that they existed, but I knew at 5 I was going to university. I have no idea where I got that idea from, but I knew I had to get all the way through primary school, then I had to do high school, and then I could do the thing that I actually wanted to do. What 5-year-old knows that? I don't know, a gifted and talented one who's watched Doctor Who, I guess. But I'm a freak. I am the freak. I am Eliza Doolittle. I am the person whose background did not prepare me for what I came into. I took advantage of the education though. I had it. I used it. And now I contribute to it. I teach others. And I teach others not in a private school of exclusivity. I teach ordinary and disadvantaged people in a state school. This right here, what I am doing right now, is part of this. I don't talk in this in some elitist way to, show off my education. That's not how you teach. I am offering, here are books that I've read. Some of these are really difficult books. Some of these are really difficult plays. I'm going to break them down so that you, who do not have the advantage of my education, can begin to engage with these things because I believe these things have value. That is a Fabian idea. You don't have to be talking politically. You can be saying, I am going to give you access. I understand how hard it was for you to come to this. I am going to help you access it. Because I was there once too. I still feel like a freak at times. I have gained a lot of cultural capital, but I don't feel proper middle class. I don't feel properly like I have the same understand the same rules as people who were brought up middle class. But I'm not servile. I don't think I'm less than. I can see that there is a game that has been rigged against me, and I have used every possible tool that I have found to improve my position. And that is what this play is about. This play, no one is going to say that Eliza Doolittle is a duchess. She, as much as she has learned, as many of the bits of cultural capital she has picked up, she's never going to be a duchess. But she can run a shop. She can marry Freddie. Which is what George Bernard Shaw has her do in his piece that he wrote afterwards, because he was so upset at people misunderstanding his play. This is a play of social mobility, but not social mobility through marriage, through legalized prostitution, as it were, of a woman of no means marrying someone better. Freddie has no money. They're tenuously hanging on to their class. Eliza has no money. And yet she is in a better position than her father, who's suddenly been given money. And Mrs. Higgins at one point says, oh, well, now we know how Eliza can be. You can look after Eliza. Eliza doesn't want to be looked after. Eliza wants to stand on her own feet. And she is able to stand on her own feet because of the education she's been given, and because she is suddenly able to see herself not as insignificant, not as a squashed cabbage leaf, not as an inferior, but as an equal. An equal because of the education she has received, that she is his equal. She is no worse than him. She has come from behind. She has had to work very, very hard to get where she is, but she is not less than. And it's very interesting that throughout the play, Henry Higgins uses enormously dehumanizing language to her. He calls her a squashed cabbage leaf. That's one of his most common references to her. And in the last few lines of the play, he says, you and I and Pickering will be 3 old bachelors together instead of 2 men and a girl. Once she asserts herself, once she is a tower of strength, the consort battleship, he recognizes her equality. He calls her a bachelor, the same word he uses for himself. When she recognizes that she is not servile, he doesn't treat her as such. He changes his language. He calls her the same name that he calls himself. That is what this is a play about. This is not exactly a feminist play. Eliza is female and Henry is male because it helps to starkly portray their positions. Okay? Eliza is the lower class. She's going to be the lower status person. Henry is upper middle class and male. The same dynamic would take place if Eliza was male socially, but a male from the lower classes would have a lot less, it would be less stark how wide that gap of civility is. Henry might be, by using someone of his own gender, he might be a bit intimidated into less rudeness. So the social aspect is made more stark because of the gender, not because it's about her being a woman, but to make the image more stark. Bachelor is a gendered term. He doesn't call her a spinster. He doesn't lower her and make her less than in that line. He calls her a bachelor. He calls her his equal. Education has equalized them. She still has no money. Money is not the equalizer. Her father has money. It doesn't make Higgins his equal. It's the money that's respected, not Doolittle. Doolittle even realises he'll have to come as a student to Higgins to learn to talk proper, like a gent. Eliza realises she's his equal. She owns it. And that's what makes her his equal. That is what this is about. It is about how you gain that equality, but also recognising it. Charity is not enough. What you need to do is allow people to self-actualize, and you need to take away the hurdles that stop them self-actualizing. Things like poverty, things like health, things like education. When you take those things away, Eliza, without a penny to her name and not even owning the clothes that she came in on, is his equal. Before she's done anything economic, and he recognises it. He's not insulted when she tells him, buy them yourself. That is a recognition of her knowing her place as an equal, not as lesser. That is what this is about. That is what this is about. This is a piece of Fabian propaganda. It's a piece of Fabian propaganda, and I've now ruined it for you if you've watched the whole thing. So, peace and love, guys. Peace and love. If you would like to support this channel, come across to the Black Cockie Press website, www.blackcockiepress.com.au, where you will find books and other writing services to help with your writing.